Welcome. My name is Jan Buerta. I am an enterprise security solution architect with the Global Sales Security and Privacy team. And I would like to welcome all of you to today's monthly security and privacy forum. This session is going to be focusing on privacy and regulatory updates. We're not focusing on a very specific area. We are focusing this globally, so it should be of interest to everybody joining. We've got quite a wide-ranging audience attending today. And we will be spending a little bit more time in some of the highly regulated environments, which typically is Europe, just due to the regulatory environment, but the updates apply to everybody. Okay. Just a few housekeeping rules. First off, this session is being recorded. It will be made available along with the content that's being presented in the next few days after this. Also take note, if you've got any questions, please feel free to pop them into the chat. We've got a whole team of people monitoring that would be able to give you answers on those. For those questions that we see come up quite regularly, we have saved some time at the end of the session for a Q&A session. So we'll probably pull those up and get our panel to answer it for you. So you pop over to the next slide for me, Shazad. I am luckily not the one that you're going to be listening to for the rest of this afternoon. I would like to introduce you to Bill Dummett, Associate General Counsel and Chief Privacy Officer. Bill?
Yeah, hey everybody, happy to be here.
Cool. And Shazad, which is actually going to start us off a little bit later on, Global VP Pre-Sales and Security and Privacy.
Hello, everyone.
Cool. So moving on to our agenda, we actually have quite a busy session this afternoon. So you can move over to the next one for me, please, Shazad. So we're going to start off with privacy legal roles and responsibilities. Just essentially, who do you go to if you've got a certain type of question? Okay, it should be nice and clear for everybody. Then we're going to look at the engagement process. Once you've identified who you need to talk to, how can you get to hold of them? Okay, easiest way of doing that. Then we're going to move into the EMEA privacy regulatory update. As I said, EMEA is usually the higher regulated environment. So we will be spending a bit of time on those. The big advantage is a lot of rules in Europe, which is advantageous for the rest of the world as well, because we tend to push those out globally. Then we're going to hand over to Bill for some privacy office updates, LATAM, APAC, North America regulatory updates for the wider world, and then hopefully end about 15 minutes of Q&A time for everybody on the call. With that, I'm going to hand over to Shazad, and I'm going to go off camera so you can focus on what he's talking about and not me moving around.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, everyone can hear me fine.
Yes, coming through clear.
Okay. Hello, everyone, team. So as Jan said, I will quickly go through some of these slides. Some of you might have seen them before. If not, it would be a good kind of revision for everyone. So there are three key customer-facing teams which are engaged as part of legal and privacy engagement. I think the first row is crystal clear: master services agreement or relationship agreements. They always you go to legal via CLM. If these are privacy terms, data processing agreements, you will go to privacy office. If these are security terms related questions, as you know, within our contracts, we have a security annex. You will first go to legal and then you will engage us. And in some cases, you can come to us directly. I will touch upon it. Then transfer impact assessment, which is required mainly in EU, but some of our global customers are also asking because they have global operations. Our privacy office owns it. You can definitely get a copy of the latest one by contacting our team. But if there are any amendments, any changes, then of course, our privacy office is responsible. Privacy audits, we start to get some of them, especially regarding our sub-processors, or again, privacy office is responsible for these audits. If these are privacy assessments like questionnaires, similar to what you receive on security side, then of course you would come to our team. with a note, with a double star saying if these assessments are specific to App Foundry applications or any PS build applications, then those teams should be engaged, because we as a pre-sales organization have no insight how they have implemented some of the privacy controls. And last but not least, of course, any customer-facing engagements, you can engage our global pre-sales privacy and security team. With this, how to engage. And I think you're all familiar, two ways to engage. You can either go via CC portal, or you have app available within Genesys Collaborate pre-sales portal. You can open a ticket with a privacy category, and then we would assign a resource. One of our PM will assign a resource within 48 hours, and we will confirm SLAs. Over assessments for existing customers, we always require 30 days. Same is true for normally for prospects, but we are mindful. Sometimes there are some urgent requests. We are happy to handle exceptions, but please help us to get these assessments out as early as possible. You can engage with your prospects and customers. If they are in a regulated sector, they will definitely do an assessment. Ask them if they need to complete an assessment and engage us early. And of course, then if we need help to engage our InfoSec or any other BU team or corporate team on security and privacy side, then we will do so. I have provided escalation email. Please do not try to open or send us new engagements via email. Any information that come to us via tickets, of course, will get a priority, but you can use email for escalation. And in terms of any privacy requests, you will go via data privacy email address. Now, one thing I wanted to highlight, and I think we need your help in the field to set expectations. One of our biggest pain point we start to get a lot is we start to get a lot of requests for custom security and privacy terms, and especially on customer paper. We will push back against them, but this is how I think you can push back. So you are all familiar with our architecture. I'm sure some of you use this slide where you talk about our availability zones and our VPC. It's also important for customers to note that when AWS infrastructure is being used, we have to comply with AWS policies. That's why AWS acceptable use policy is within our contracts, and our customers and partners have to comply. Same is true for Genesys, as Genesys is assuring security in the cloud. So we are responsible for these security policies and as well as controls. So they will have to be defined by us, especially knowing it's a multi-tenant platform. So we just cannot accept customer policies, which are typically designed for customer networks. And then they try to push those policies to us and saying, can you please agree to them, or can you comply to them? So the best way is to provide customers over policy, over terms, and explaining them, hey, you would be the one accessing your org within our environment that we are securing. So we have to start with our controls and our policies. And if they want to map them against their policies, they can definitely do that. But they try to send that kind of engagement to us, saying, hey, can you please review our policy that applies to our network and then map it with the Genesys Cloud. I mean, there are some exceptions we have done, but please help us to articulate this this requirement on why we need to start on our paper. That should be the starting point. And I will talk about some of the enhancement and improvement we are doing that will make it further easier for you to position it. Now, if a contractual discussion is required for security terms, most of the time it would be explaining our policy, certain controls, or sometime certain controls or certain terms are not listed and customer want to have further clarity or addition. In that case, it is done only for high touch opportunities. So it has to be an approved high touch opportunity. And then the process would be for account team to first open a CLM with the legal team. Legal team would review and actually provide a recommendation if our team needs to be engaged. If this is the case, then then that ticket would be opened by account team, going again on CC portal, and we have created a special field to make it make it easier, so you can also select a legal owner and also CLM request, so we can then directly work with legal team on that engagement. And of course, the way we work with legal is legal team is always, of course, we can do initial markups and changes and check with our BU, but then when we are having a call with the customer, then the legal owner should be on the call, because it's sensitive to agree on certain terms and conditions, and the legal blessing is definitely required. Another clarification, we have seen some requests for risk assessments to be included as part of contracts. We can't do that. That is not possible as part of our policy, corporate policy. So risk assessments cannot be included. They should be a way for customers to see what risk they have, and if they have specific requirements on terms, then they can come back to legal team. Okay, that was a quick update, 5 minutes update on roles and responsibility, process of engagement. Let's start with our actual topic for today. For privacy update, and I will focus mainly on EMEA. I just want to clarify, knowing there's a global audience, some terminologies, because I would be using EEA, European Economic Area. Just wanted everyone to know what is in European Economic Area. We will use adequate countries terminology. Adequate countries are essentially those countries where European Economic Area data can flow freely from privacy standpoint. It's one big privacy world. So with that clarity, another clarity on definition, different legislations around the world have different definitions. Our prime focus is on personal information because GDPR applies to, of course, entire European Economic Area, and any multinational global customer would also require a compliance to GDPR. And we have already seen a lot of engagements from large US customers on that front. So just to keep in mind, as we go through this presentation, GDPR would always apply to personal data. Then there are some regulated sectors where they have a different definition. They want to have a regulated data or confidential information where some additional subset of information can be included. And some customers might require or have specific requirements for all customer information or all customer data that is submitted to Genesys Cloud. Okay. So think about it as a more pyramid. GDPR is a foundation. Not only for EU or European Economic Area, it is also for Genesys. Genesys global privacy standard is GDPR. Hence, it's important for everyone to understand how we do different compliance, how to fulfill certain compliance requirements, and how it can benefit other regions. Then there are vertical specific requirements or sometimes country specific requirement. Either they are for financial sector or public sector or certain countries. There could be additional requirements, or that's where their definition of compliance data would be or can be above and beyond personal data. And then there are some customers, which are very few, they want certain obligations to be on all customer data. So with this background, let's go through this journey. So we have been on a journey because of GDPR or because of Schrems judgment that happened in 2020, that put restrictions on transfers to United States mainly, but also to other third countries. So third countries would mean the countries that you did not see in that list of EA or adequate countries. So for EU, that was started with adding multiple regions, new regions, and then that is where we started making changes that are now going to benefit our entire global customer base. And the first one was we started reducing PII in logs, and we added also restrictions to transfers to US by making routing changes within our customer care organization. So today our current state is, for our European customers, European Economic Area customers, we provide them customer care only from EA plus adequate countries and India and Philippines. And I'm hoping very soon India might be out of the list, because anyhow, at this point, there is very limited customer care staff in India. Then we added multiple new certification. Again, these certifications, some of them was EU specific, but our compliance team have done an amazing job. If you go on Trust site and see the list of certifications, they are amazing what they have done during last year. starting from ISO 27017 and others. So they all helped us to have these discussions with our regulated customers. Then what is coming very soon? So we have EA plus UK customer care model with business hour support. That is going to be available by the end of Q1. And we have first customer actually going live with this on January 1st in Germany as an MVP. And at the same time, we have a huge project going on within our product management team, Privacy at Scale. So Chris, I'm not going to steal thunder from you, and we are trying to plan a session ASAP because Brian and Livy has already requested, but that deeper dive session would be mainly for EMEA sales and pre-sales organization. We will let you know the dates very soon, but if our global audience is interested in the chat, please let us know, and we might extend invitation to global team. So you will get to know what enhancements we are doing to further reduce PII or all known PII essentially from our logs. So that project is ongoing. Then the reason we also get a lot of custom requests, or I would say, requests to have discussions on security term is our security terms were really defined for all our offerings. Now we have an opportunity to define these terms for Genesys Cloud. So we have started a project with the collaboration of our BU, InfoSec, legal, privacy, and PSP team, where we are working on updating our existing security policy. Essentially, what we are going to do is we know what are the usual questions we have received, and we already do those things. So why not we add them in our security policy to avoid these questions? So we plan to get this new draft. We are trying our best to have it ready for February, but we will keep you updated as we have just started on this effort, and most probably most of the work would be done in Jan. Then also by the end of Q2, this is targeted date at this point. We also plan to offer EEA only. So EEA plus UK model will really help our UK customers mainly, and of course, a lot of customers in EEA or in EU. But there are some customers in European Economic Area, they also do not want their data to go to UK after Brexit, and they don't want data to go to any adequate countries. There are very few of them, but of course, we want to also target those customers, those regulated customers. So this our offer would really help us to also go after that addressable market, so we can enhance our offering. And especially, I have recently seen a lot of requests from EU banking sector where they have started to ask about this service. So this is going to be available again, more detail to follow also at Privacy at Scale, because there are a lot of enhancements which are as part of this project. They're going to feed in to assure that we have a real EA and DevOps model available to our customers. And as you can see, all these enhancements would help our global customer base, because once PII is reduced or minimized within our logs, that would help us to achieve compliance in a lot of other areas or other countries. And of course, the final target at some point would be how we can do a bit more also on the ownership or encryption side. So there are active discussions with BU, with Glenn on some of the enhancements. Again, we will include these discussions as part of our next session, hopefully in Q1. Now, for what you need to know, this slide is what you need to have if you are going to have discussions for any customers. Doesn't matter if they are in EMEA or globally, if they are concerned about EU privacy legislation. This is essentially a summary for our transfer impact assessment, how we started on the journey, how we removed access for US personnel from our care organization first, how we implemented additional controls within logging to reduce PII, and this effort is still ongoing. How we deployed VDI to ensure we have some controls for data infiltration. And then we also implemented controls for EA and only these two countries. So customer care is only offered from this, and now we are offering these two. So this would be a good slide for you to use in case if you need to have a discussion with any prospect or customers. Something very small, but actually very beneficial to our global audience. We have published a new app from our team. It's called GDPR Demo App. This would help you to demo different scenarios for how data subject request, or in United States, they're called consumer rights, how our product have, I would say, best in the market approach for handling these requests. And we have created in such a manner that you can demo with nice graphical interfaces and show customers how they can also get access to some of the reports required for regulatory purposes. And this is just for you to show how it will help you to have any discussion, for example, with CCPA. So what is coming next? So far we have done a lot and we are still on the journey, but there are additional AWS regions upcoming as soon as we have all the services available. So we'll try to include that information in our next update so you can get a better insight into the roadmap of which are different new AWS region we are going in. Continuous improvement for data anonymization, privacy at scale. As I mentioned, security policy. And our BU InfoSec, we will also invite them in the next session. They are proactively expanding our compliance portfolio, and also they are expanding our assets that we can use for due diligence. And our privacy team is working on a new improved DPA to better cover different scenarios that is going to be available. And Bill is planning to make it available at the start of fiscal year. Also, we will update some legal terms and templates as I will talk in a minute about DORA. So this will help from legal contractual standpoint. And then, of course, message to you is please engage us proactively, because you would see more and more regulated customers now, because of legislative changes. They have a compulsory requirement to do risk assessment before they pick a cloud provider or a vendor. And there are strict requirements, especially if it is classified as a critical vendor for their operations. And we also plan to get on a journey. We did start partner enablement. We have done a few sessions in North America, but they were very light. But we plan to actively start on that path. So you would see a plan from us at the start of Q1, how we will help our channels team to better train our partners. Also wanted to share a quick overview, and Graham, thank you for sharing this. On the right-hand side, you can see our InfoSec compliance team is also working very closely with BU product management team to create a very nice list of new assets. And these new assets would be key for us to have discussions with regulated customers as they will come with their security or privacy assessments. We as a team are also working on 2 white papers, GDPR API in detail explanation. So it can be used by our global audience to build apps if they want for their purpose. And also half of the time we end up discussing encryption. So we have worked with product management, say last 4 months, and we have now very nice data flows explaining different use cases for encryption. So we plan to make a white paper available that will help us and help you to have these discussions. And of course, there is a formal audit process that we will explain in the next session. And as I said, privacy at scale project. So with that, knowing I have 10 minutes left, I will try to use these 10 minutes quickly to give a quick update on what is EU data strategy, and then touch a little bit upon DORA and how all these things link together. So EU announced a new digital strategy. As part of this digital strategy, today we're going to just really focus on data strategy, right? There are white papers available from EU, very nicely done. What is their strategy? It is good for, especially if you are in the sales, good to know that if you are going to have discussions with regulated customers. As part of the data strategy, EU then started working on legislation. So these legislations are specific to mainly these 4 legislations specific to EU data strategy. And out of these legislations, the first one we will touch upon would be here, the DORA. It was in the proposal state, but now it is almost there. And I have a slide providing an update where we stand. So before I touched upon DORA, it's important to understand DORA is addressing operational resilience for financial services institutions. UK started early on operational resilience, and they already have law that is now applicable to all financial services sector customers in UK. Though these all obligations in UK are only on banks and financial institutions, and they are not directly imposed to vendors like us. So all we have to do is really help our financial service customer to explain how they will achieve compliance. But DORA is a bit different because DORA not only puts obligation on EU financial institutions, but it will also put obligations on critical vendors. And if we are classified as a critical vendor, we will have those additional obligations, right? So law is expected to go in force sometime in January. That would depend when they would publish this legislation in their official journal, but expected around sometime Jan, and there are 24 months for then all financial institution to comply. So who should comply? On the left-hand side, you see the type of financial entities which are under scope of this legislation. On the right-hand side, you see those third parties, right? So AWS is definitely in scope, right? Or any other cloud providers. And then this last, if we are classified as a critical ICT provider, which we will be for a lot of financial institutions, in that case, we will also have to fulfill those requirements. And our InfoSec team is already looking into that. BU is looking into that to see what are the additional obligations. But the good news is we have everything we need to have these discussions with our prospects and customers, because we have already done that. You know, for existing legislation that exists, we already comply. We already have a lot of customers, and these additional requirements, we have all the means to comply. So what is the summary and what message you can give to your customers and partners, a prospect, if they ask about DORA? First of all, from privacy standpoint, it's important to understand there's a very little change. Yes, scope is broader, but only new obligations that at least we have seen. Again, it's, you know, we will see more as this law will get implemented and different institutions or different bodies will start to kind of understand it better, how it will apply. But at this point, there are no direct new privacy obligations beyond GDPR. Yes, there are very strict new notification timelines for bank, which are more aggressive than 24 hours. And if we are classified as their critical vendor, so we will work towards them. And there is already a plan from BU how they will work on it, how their staffing would look like. So we will try to include that information in upcoming session. Also, if we have time towards the end, I will show you some of these assets and resources which our BU has created. Actually, these assets are very impressive. Some of these assets will help our customers, financial institutions, to include these assets as part of their auditing scope, right? And again, I don't want to steal thunder from Graham and his team. So we will talk more about it. And if we are left with some time, we will definitely show some of these assets to you. So the statement that you can take to your customers and partners is this, right? It is not a certification. DORA is a legislation. It's a law, right? So not complying is not an option. We would comply for our scope, right? We will have limited scope. As I said, we will have a critical ICT provider scope. And for that scope, your message is, hey, we have expertise within our organization. We can start that engagement with you, and we will work with you so you can be compliant with DORA, right? So I hope that message is clear. If there are any questions, please continue to type them in chat and we will take them off. So with that, I think, Bill, I am done 5 minutes earlier than planned. So you might have more time. Otherwise, we'll keep a little bit more time for Q&A later. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Shahzad. Hello, everybody. I'm here to give you a privacy office update and then also an update of other trends we're seeing around the globe and just in the industry in general. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so first off, just a good update about the team itself. We're continuing to grow. So we've added a new privacy attorney, Mario. Some of you may have interacted with him already. He's based in France and joins us from AXA. He primarily has experience in EU data privacy. Again, we see that as kind of like driving the boat globally when it comes to data privacy laws, but he does have experience internationally with data privacy laws, and we continue to develop that sort of expertise. So it's not just EU focused, although that tends to be the main driver of those legislations. So if you have any questions, we have some more people on the team now to be able to help out, and also the hours of availability for the privacy team are a bit better now. And speaking of engaging with the privacy team, now that we have a larger team, it's going to be easier if you send requests to dataprivacy@genesys.com or submit documents through CLM if they need to be reviewed. By going through the dataprivacy@genesys.com, we have a cycle of a member of the team will monitor that inbox and assign those questions out as they come in. If you send that and you don't get a response back, or if there's something higher importance, go ahead and shoot me a message on Cloud or shoot me an email or something like that, and we'll get to you. But that's a good way to get your question status. And so the privacy team, what we do, we maintain the DPAs, those versions, the BAAs, which are a privacy document for the United States, our privacy policies, transfer impact assessments, and related documentations. And any other questions you get from customers about compliance with law or documentations requests, go ahead and send those our ways. We'll be able to help you out, or at least point you in the right direction. And that also helps us kind of gauge what kind of questions you all are seeing from the field, so we know really where to develop resources to help you. And earlier we had mentioned updating the DPA. So the DPA is a document that's required between a company and its vendor under GDPR, but also under some other regions, like Brazil requires one, Argentina does as well. There are other data privacy legislations that don't require it, although you'll see similar requests. So things like the California law, for instance, does not require a specific contractual document, but a lot of times you'll see customers request that, and we try to keep those documents broad enough to cover all of those. And recently, new standard contractual clauses were released by Europe. Those are a part of a DPA that help legitimize international transfers out of Europe. We're going to be releasing a new DPA based largely on that, just because those have the blessing of the European Commission that they meet all of the requirements of GDPR. So the goal for that is to really streamline negotiations, because it's going to be a very focused amount of obligations and information is provided through that. So as that continues to roll out, you'll see those updates come out from the privacy office. If you see like a certain level of pushback to those, or some questions that come up time and time again, please let us know so that we can continue to draft those documents in a way that's most helpful to getting deals done quickly. Okay, next slide. Now, so legislative updates outside of EMEA. So kind of the big ticket item right now is the North Atlantic Data Transfer Agreement. So as we talked about, the Schrems II, which invalidated Privacy Shield, would called into question data transfers from the EU to the US. Earlier this year, the Biden White House signed an executive order that gave judicial recourse to citizens of other territories outside the United States, that if they get monitored by the NSA, they have a way to kind of challenge that. And there's an administrative court set up for that. That's actually a really huge movement that not a lot of people expected out of the United States. So I think that's going to help not just EU transfers to the US, but really around the globe, help trust data protections based in the United States. And that's currently being reviewed by the European Commission. That was expected to come out first half of next year, but actually the European Commission has signaled that it may come out as early as December 12th, at least the draft decision. So we are on the cusp of finding out whether or not there may be an adequacy decision for the United States. So keep in mind, but it does make data transfers from the EU to the US easier under GDPR. There continues to be other market pressures and other industry-specific regulations that push for data localization, so that even though that will be regulatory more easy to transfer, we're still going to continue to work on data minimization and data localization. We're just seeing that not only in Europe, but around the globe, customers asking to keep data locally for various reasons. We're also seeing a lot of changes in US privacy law. So as we talked about, in addition to that executive order, there's also a proposed American Data Privacy and Protection Act. So we may start to see, kind of based on GDPR, similar to California law, starting to get pushed through the United States. And then you're going to see a lot of privacy questions from your US-based prospects and customers as a result of that. Now that's slowly rolling out, but it is starting to get attention in the United States. In the background of that, the FTC, which is the enforcement mechanism for some of the data privacy issues and cybersecurity issues in the United States, has really increased enforcement. This is largely because they were able to issue a large fine to Facebook, which gave them a significant amount of funding, and they've been able to use that to increase enforcement to other companies as well. So that may also start to raise questions you'll see with customers and prospects in North America or that do business in North America. And we also continue to see states developing laws. So we have a number of states with a number of different privacy frameworks. As it stands so far, our GDPR-based controls that we enact globally allow us to meet all of those various states, but you're going to see more and more questions that are getting to state-specific laws. And as you see those, if you want to become more conversant in those, reach out to the privacy team. We're happy to either build documentation for you or even do state-specific or country-specific training if you're getting a lot of questions. Now, out of the APAC region, China is like the really tough one to operate in. We're continuing to investigate that. It's currently very difficult to legitimize data transfers from within China to anywhere else. So that continues to be a tough problem to solve, but we're monitoring that. The rest of APAC kind of continues at pace. No major updates. There are some changes to the Japanese law and Australian law, for instance. But by and large, we continue to be compliant in those regions, and the same answers we have to those questions will still apply for those as well. There's some changes in India law that was proposed, but then got walked back. So we're kind of waiting to see where India goes with their legislation. And then South Africa, which I guess falls out of APAC and then EMEA, but South Africa recently passed a data privacy law. But again, our global controls were able to meet that. So if you have any detailed questions about those, feel free to raise them here or follow up with me later. Latin America. So Brazil and Argentina both have laws that mirror GDPR very closely. We haven't seen any other major advancements in privacy law in that region, so we continue to move forward with our privacy program in those regions and answer those questions there as well. Now, another big issue that we're seeing pop up that is very related to data privacy is AI regulations. So around the globe, North America, Europe, Latin America, Asia Pacific, we're seeing a flood of new regulations about artificial intelligence. Now, the primary concern for these regulations tends to be along a couple lines. First, I would say is transparency. So there are laws requiring that if you're talking to a bot or if data that you're giving gets analyzed by artificial intelligence, then you have to be able to tell the end customer. Now, largely that's going to be the responsibility of our customers that we sell our services to. But in order for them to meet that obligation, you're going to see questions from our prospects and customers about the artificial intelligence that we use so that they can properly inform their end subjects. So expect to see more artificial intelligence questions, especially with our digital offerings. Now, the second area of AI that's also looked at quite a bit with these regulations is biased outcomes. A lot of times with artificial intelligence, they're based on patterns and data sets, and there may be biased data sets that a human being just wouldn't realize just because it can be at a very high level. So, but the output of an artificial intelligence could have unforeseen consequences where it provides an impact to a particular group of people based on a number of different factors. And these AI regulations are targeted to preventing that. So there's going to be a lot of after the fact analysis of AI and continuing checking on artificial intelligence. And you're going to start seeing questions about this. And to that point, we do have an AI ethics committee, and we also have an AI anonymization team as well. So we have really good answers when it comes to AI, and we'd be happy to talk about that with anybody on these teams or any of our prospects. But at its base level, all of our AI is built off of anonymized data sets. So we take a very conservative approach to making sure the data that is processed does not contain personal information. That's done by algorithm and also confirmed by human review. And even when it's anonymized, it's still kept under information security controls. It goes out, it trains the models. Now, if it finds out that that data was improperly collected or maybe a piece of personal information snuck through, we're able to claw that back and reset the models and pull that out of the data lake as well. So a really belt and suspenders approach to the AI. And then the AI ethics committee also meets up to make sure that we're developing AI in an ethical way, that we're being transparent with our customers, and that we're avoiding bias with the outcomes of our artificial intelligence as well. So Europe, look for them to adopt legislation on this next year. And the United States is not far behind on that as well.
Bill, can I ask a quick question on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
On the bias part, one of the things that I find really challenging about that is that the dividing line between customer responsibility and our responsibility, right? The customers are using our AI. We wouldn't make like a mortgage decision, right? Based on AI. That would be a customer use case of utilizing our AI, right?
Yes. Exactly.
But making a decision potentially of like routing a call to a particular agent group or something like that, we could have some responsibility in our AI that our AI inherently carries some kind of bias that routes certain parties to certain places. It's very hard to find that dividing line is what I feel like I'm trying to say.
Yeah, so that dividing line is not yet developed for these legislation that's upcoming, but where that dividing line is in like GDPR, for instance, is what they call automated decision making. And then kind of like, it's still a gray line, but the line that they draw there is things that have a significant legal impact to the individual. And the position we've taken up till now is like, okay, our AI does make the decision about, okay, what agent are you going to talk to? If you have a question about XYZ or you seem particularly agitated, here's an agent that has a good skill set to help you out with that. Yeah, that's an automated decision, but that's not a significant legal impact. It doesn't change like whether or not you get a job or get a loan or like whether or not you go to jail or not. There is some responsibility on the customer side, though, that if they're using AI tools to make those sort of significant legal impacts, that's going to be up to the customer. Now, for them to do that analysis internally, they're going to have questions for us about the tools. But I think we are on the safe side of the line as is drawn in GDPR. And I suspect the AI regulations will have a similar line about significant legal impact.
Thank you very much for joining our session. I hope the information was useful. If you require any additional information on the topics that was covered in the session or would like to reach out to the team, please feel free to either raise a CC request or contact the pre-sale security and privacy team. Thank you very much and have a nice day.